Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only, Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host, PK, Patricia Kirkman. How are you tonight?
Absolutely fabulous. Dripping with the heat, and it feels so good. I'm so tired of being cold, but they did it a little too quick. I think they didn't, a few baby steps and then jumping right into the kettle. I wish they'd just had a few more baby steps.
Well, I know what you mean. I'm guessing that, we've had an extended cold period here in New England, and I was just saying the other day, I wouldn't be surprised if it just goes from cold to hot. It's just all these extremes lately. But I'm glad you're getting some nice warm weather. You deserve it.
Oh, it's fabulous. It feels so good. I don't care how hot it is when you get in the car. It just feels good. I still haven't thawed out from the way it was so cool for so long.
Oh,
I'm a coward.
I know what you mean.
I like it warm.
I'm still sitting here in a down vest, so that's just how it is here in the beautiful state of number 3 in coronavirus cases in Massachusetts. Jeez.
Oh, yes. You've got your share of it now. That's for darn sure.
Well, we have had a tremendous influx of cases, and it's really kind of scary. They're going to keep the state closed down until May 18th, I hear, and go from there. But tonight, we've got a great guest, and I'm hoping he'll be able to make it on the line because I don't see him on the board yet. But we have Captain Randy Cramer, who is one of our most sought-after guests. Everybody just raved about the show with him last time. And as you know, he accurately predicted everything about this virus. He warned us. He warned our audience and said, this is going to be really serious, everybody. This is nothing to take lightly. And he gave us all the information we needed to really get prepared. So thanks to him, our audience knew what was going on before the rest of the world. And he's going to be back here tonight, I hope. So that's the plan anyways. Yes, well, we're very anxious to get caught up with Captain Cramer, and also we planned on talking about updates on the virus and disclosure, because remember, he told us that we were going to have disclosure between 6 months and 2 years. I know it's a long time frame, but hopefully it's narrowed down a little bit more.
That would be nice.
So we'd like to know about that, and also talking about the missing 411 cases. I spoke with Randy off the air, and he had a lot of information about what may be happening to these people who are disappearing in our parks. And we also wanted to ask him, of course, about the smiley face killer cases, which were happening across college campuses, where these young men were being found in these bodies of water, but they didn't drown, and they had been missing for long periods of time, some of them, and they weren't in the water that whole time. So very strange cases. Wanted to bring that up to Captain Cramer, as well as anything else that he has to update us on in the world today. So I texted him and I said, we're on, so please give us a call as soon as you can. So until we hear from him, it's just you and me, PK. So what do we got for numbers?
Well, that's all right. We'll hold it down. It's worth waiting for. No doubt about that.
Right.
Well,
so what's happening? We got a nine coming up?
Yeah, we certainly do, Ollie. It will be a 9 months, and this is the problem with the 9 months. Anytime we deal with nine deals with endings. So it takes you what seems to be going backwards, and this is a good, as it allows us to redo or change or redirect things. Just consider everything as unfinished. It makes it easier. The 9 makes us very emotional, not only issues from the past, emotional type situations, but they're going to be triggers throughout the month that will create issues for us. And it isn't always happy stuff. The 9, like I said, is completions. And if it hasn't been completed yet, it's going to be something that's dangling that it's not one of our favorite pinatas. Consequences of actions from the past, they're going to seem to pop up at this point in time and create some issues for you. You can trust what you feel at the present, but you have things tugging at you, so you're not really sure. You're also going to need to adjust what you need to let go of, and things that need to be redone. This is a perfect time to lay that out. Caring for others is an important role. So don't allow your negative ideas to cross over and create issues on the day-to-day stuff. Because you're going to find that caring for others, sharing and allowing the stranger of the corner, shall we say, to show that they have value and they have some worth. Because there are so many out right now that are going through such terrible, terrible hard times. And next month it's going to show even more than it does at present. So the 9 is about letting us become aware of others, how to realize, extend our need to take care of others, keep us bound in achieving happiness. If we are upbeat and upgoing, others will feel the same way as well. And that part's important for us. So memories are going to pop up this month that deal with the past. Fix them. Take care of them when you can. No man is an island. This has to be proven true throughout the past weeks, and it will be true as we go into the present. Repeating themselves. Let's kind of like not look at this as a time that we're having others that are stepping stones to be going forward and blending together to make this a stronger nation as well. Taking care and respecting each other. God, that's so important right now. And you're going to find that some situations will be concluded, bringing you some relief when the month is over. So don't assume the worst, except that your past is on the ground right now. You have to cover up, get rid of what doesn't work, make way for the other aspects of things. But your understanding of this will make this time an exhilarating and dynamic one, because it will help you let go of what doesn't work. Just a thought.
That is good. Well, and it looks like we're undergoing just a major renovation of our whole culture right now. And we're watching a lot of people basically protesting being forced to stay at home, and then other people who are saying we need to stay home longer. So lots of opinions about this. Yet we're seeing scientists and doctors going after treatments and vaccines and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of energy moving in that direction to find ways to basically avoid or get rid of this horrible virus. And again, it was Captain Cramer who basically rang the bell on that for us and said, hey, this is serious. You guys take it seriously because it's going to get serious. And he was surely right. But while we're waiting for him, I wanted to talk about what's going to be happening next week on the show. We have a big event that we are going to be promoting next week with our dear friend Renee Barnett, who does Night Vision Radio. She has a sister show to ours, and she's been working on a big project, and it's just groundbreaking. I mean, I was thinking about it today. Don't you really feel the same way? This is an amazing project. They're the first ones to do this.
I think it's so fascinating, and it's incredible that all these things are out and about, and they've kind of bypassed us, like tiptoed around, and all of a sudden we've got the frontal view of what's taking place.
Well,
this is going to be very
because what they've done, so we'll tell everybody, what's going to happen is on May 9th, you will be able to see every room inside the house that the movie The Conjuring was based on. Mm-hmm. There is a family living there now, and they are still experiencing hauntings and all kinds of poltergeist activity. And Renee and the company she's working with, they have put cameras everywhere. They put cable everywhere. So you're going to be able to see and hear everything for an entire week. And if you go to our Facebook page, you will see a movie there, a little trailer that you can watch. They will get you very excited about taking part in this because it's 24/7. You can watch what happens inside this house, and you'll be able to see the ghosts and moving things around or doing whatever they're going to do. You'll be a part of it. So it's going to be very exciting. This is a worldwide event to be able to watch this, and it's very inexpensive. I think for the whole week it's like $19.95, and you don't have to pay for the whole week either. They have broken it down, I think, per day also, which is really, a small amount of money. But it's going to be a terrific event. Now, next week, we will be having you, PK, talking about the numbers of this house.
Yep.
And it was quite a scary movie. I don't remember seeing the whole thing, but I do remember seeing the trailer. And this involved Ed and Lorraine Warren, who lived in Connecticut and did the research on this house. They went in as kind of Ghostbusters for this house. And it was quite a scary trailer, so I would imagine the things that took place there were big things. It was apparently called one of the most haunted houses or the most haunted house. So I'm very excited to have Renee come on and talk about this entire project. You're going to talk about the numbers of this house and what it all means. And we are also going to have Corby Mitleid on running tarot cards for this house. So we'll be able to find out more in depth about what's going on there. So, and George might join us too, I hear. So if George is able to come on, he'll be able to tune in and also share some of his psychic mediumship abilities and see if he can tune into whatever is living there now. But apparently they had quite a few entities, and I think Lorraine Warren, at least in the trailer that I saw, was alluding to the fact that one of them was really dangerous. So it'll be great to see this kind of thing. And it's brand spanking new. Nobody else has done this before, to my knowledge, where you could do this for an entire week, watch inside a haunted house. So it should be great fun. But next week we'll be introducing all of this to you. We may also be able to get a member of that family to come on. Now, this is the second family that's lived there since the movie was made. The original family sold it, moved on, and now there's a new family. But apparently all of the haunting and poltergeist activity never stopped. So this is going to be a great event. So are you excited about it?
I think it's fascinating. And to think that we're going to be able to be a part of it as we're safely at a distance. Not that I'm a coward or anything, but
I know, really. It's that's the best part. We can watch from a safe distance, so
that's right.
We don't have to feel any cold, clammy hands on us in the middle of the night, right?
Oh, great. Now I won't sleep tonight, so getting anticipation.
Well, we don't have to worry about it because we won't be there live and in person. But, when George and I did work together on the skull experiment, we were able to tune into things like this together and get some pretty mystifying photos. So maybe we can do the same thing while this is going on, while they have the cameras on in the house. Let's see what else we can pick up. So I'm anxious to also just watch the movie. It's from 2013. So it's an older movie, but... Hey,
well, we're older too. Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'll bring the $3
now. Before they went, we were too young.
Yeah, right.
How's that sound?
Way too young for that. Such a scary movie. But yes, it is an important event. So I think this is a wave of things to come. This is going to be the first one. I think we'll see more of this in the future because people now like the interactive aspect of the Internet and all of what can be done, and you do feel like you're part of it. Plus, I believe they're also going to have chat available so people watching can talk to each other about what they're seeing and what they're thinking. So, again, totally in it. Renee will be on next week. She'll tell us all the details and all the history on the house because we're still waiting to get the history, right?
That's for sure. I want to know who did what to who.
Exactly. I want because I can watch the movie and so can you, but we all know that gets dramatized and Hollywoodized, and we just want to know what is the real story here
exactly.
and be able to tune into that stuff. But anyways, this is exciting. Go ahead.
I think it makes a big difference when you're able to see something like that, know some of the past history, and then see it's happening at this moment in time. Wow. What?
Yeah,
who would have ever thought?
Now, we've had people on the show before that have been a part of, lived in haunted houses, like that guy that bought the house of the serial killer. Remember him?
Right. That's right.
But the thing is that
very interesting shows.
Yeah, but the thing that was so interesting about that family is they were all scientists, engineers. They were very level-headed, so none of this stuff spooked them. And I think as a result of that, they were able to keep it under control so it didn't spiral and get really, really terrifying. I know their tenant was more terrified than they were because he was the focus of a lot of the activity. But that was a very interesting show. Remember the way they handled it? They were very, very calm.
Yeah, and George stepped right in and picked up on some of the things that were ongoing at that time, too, for us.
Yes. Yeah, he tuned right into it and was able to add some insight to it, and I'm sure he'd be able to do the same for the house that The Conjuring was based on. But, again, I think so much does depend on the state of mind of the person that's there, and it can certainly get amped up with fear.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Well, if you just think about it, when you get somebody scares you or you get a little thrown aside by being startled, how it affects you and how the momentum builds and such. And when we're talking about something like this that has taken over a family of the home, boy, does it leave footprints on you.
Well, yes, I think so. I believe Renee shared with me that there is one daughter that will not return to the house. She absolutely refused, and I don't know why. Obviously something happened that just made her feel like she couldn't deal with it anymore. So she is not a part of this, but we'll find out. There's a lot of aspects to this, and certainly with Ed and Lorraine Warren involved, they were really good ghost hunters and demon hunters. So I'm interested to see if that entity that they were so afraid of was demonic or is just some nasty spirit. I think it probably was some demonic entity. That's my guess. What do you think?
I have a funny feeling that we're going to get a surprise out of it. Don't ask me why. It's just a gut feel. I just feel that there's something under here that's going to be like the Jack in the Box. It's going to pop up when we least expect it. That's called anticipation. Sure.
Well, I'm all for it. I think that would be fun.
Well, I want to know what's behind door number 2.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to be scared too badly, or surprised too badly, but that's all right. We'll keep an extra pair of pants around if we need it, right?
That's not a bad idea.
So I don't know. I don't know if I'd want a camera in my room or in my house 24/7. I think that would be quite a lot to handle. But I guess these people were very open to it, so we get the benefit of that. So I don't know where Randy is, but we'll just keep talking until hopefully he'll show up. I've sent him, just so everybody knows, I sent him the call-in number. I told him the show was starting, and then I said, we're waiting for you. So hopefully he's gotten at least one of those messages.
Maybe
and that he's not out hiking a Sedona mountain. Pardon me?
I was going to say, is it possible that he's picking it up as the old time? Because we had the time change.
I don't know. Because I told him it was 7:30 Eastern, so
yeah,
he should have been here. But yeah, you're thinking maybe he thinks it's an hour later than when it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll find out. He picks up his phone.
Right. Well, in the meantime, anybody who's listening, if you want to call in at 563-999-3539. And if you want PK to answer any of your questions about numerology and your name, here is your opportunity to get a free reading. So, again, that phone number is 563-999-3539. If you have any questions for either one of us, feel free to call in while we're waiting for the captain. And I do think the captain can tell time. So I'm hoping that he's just not stuck on I know he likes to hike. So he may have taken a hike up one of the Sedona Mountains and just lost track of time.
In this heat, I hope not.
I hope not. And you know, the cell service up on those mountains is a little sparse. But we will see, because I know we want to hear what he has to say about all this stuff.
I know it. After all, he is a good doobie, and we want him to show us all that he knows.
I know. Well, hang on. We got a question here from a caller, so let me bring this caller on the line.
Sure.
The wheel's spinning. Hi, you're live on the air. Who's this?
Hi, ladies. It's Hugh. I wanted to take advantage
Hugh.
of your...
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I was
Yes.
supposed to be dead in 2007, but I'm going strong and changing the world from my dining room table, and I enjoy your shows and all the different guests that you bring on, and I just thought I'd take advantage as long as you have the offer open for PK to do a numerology on me. Because
what is it you'd like to know? Give me your month and day of birth. I don't need the year, just the month and day.
September 22nd.
Okay.
You want a location, too? I have that. I have everything.
Nope, I don't need a location. I know
York,
who you are.
New York City, New York?
Yeah, I don't need that. I'm looking at you and what's going on in your world right now. This been a year. I think you're spending more money on doing different things than you thought you would, and that right now you're laying things out. Are you taking a trip? I'm picking something up about a trip around you.
No, I'm pretty much homebound, but you're correct in what you were saying, because I'm being led in different directions and actually rooting out corruption, and that's where I'm spending money to get things typed up and out there. I just brought out a whole situation with a restaurant that I asked for a delivery back on January 31st before the pandemic really set in, and it was they made all kinds of horrible mistakes that they tried to say was my fault, and wound up investigating, and they turned it over to their attorney, who started telling lies. So I said, I'm not going to let that go by. So, yeah, I've got him on the hot seat.
I'll tell you what, since you're in an 8-year, they better beware, because that puts you in charge.
Well, what I like to do is make lemonade out of the lemons, so I don't do things just for me, but to show people how to use creativity and truth and honesty. That's a better way to go than lying.
Oh, definitely. And then you're in a month where you've got a lot to say. You get to say it, and you're very creative about what you're putting out there. You're going to be heard, and it will be up pops Beelzebub next month for them. Hang on there. You've got a good way to go that's going to be very positive on your side.
Oh, I feel it, and that's why I laugh, because I don't have any fear, and I look at each day as a miracle, because I'm in the VA healthcare system of all places too. And,
they're taking pretty good care of a lot of people these days. They've got
I have to be very careful. I do work a lot with spirituality, and I don't let anything invasive happen, and they were trying to do some tests that actually caused me more physical distress than psychological distress, but I pushed right back on that, and they backed off so far.
Oh, good. Stand your ground, because you're the authority this year, so take advantage of it. Up until the end of September, you're in better charge of things that are ongoing around you. After October, things are going to change where you can get rid of what doesn't fit anymore. So work on it to up it your way, and then let it go by October.
All right. I appreciate that. And I don't know if both of you ever looked over that big website, because I have a lot of documentable things on there. I heard you talking about Lorraine Warren as a show, an archive blog talk show, where I actually spoke with Alexandria Holzer, the daughter of Hans Holzer, the father of the paranormal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're very into so much, Hugh, that it's always interesting to have a chance to chat with you.
Well, we all have creativity, but people are being manipulated and controlled. They don't look at, I worked 100-hour weeks too, but I tested my entrepreneurial wings functioning as an independent international marketing consultant back in the early 80s. And people who didn't know my background, actually I had the wonderful mentor who has a letter of reference on the internet on the big website, and he was like king of franchising, and at the time I was coming into contact with him was helping Tom Monahan out of a difficult time. Tom Monahan, the founder of Domino's Pizza, but he truly loved what I had, what I was doing in my mind, and tried to start an organization, but unfortunately he took ill and passed. So I have these people that come in and out of my life, but it's amazing. I have a divine gift of what I term creative utilization of information. And that's what really needs to be sorted out during this pandemic, is for people to take personal responsibility and tap into their creativity and spirituality and be a blessing to others. And that actually, through the law of attraction, will be a blessing back to you. So what I'm looking to do is I also root out corruption and empower women and indigenous people in the process, is to show people how to create circles of love where everybody benefits, not the greed that we have.
Oh, I like that idea. Circles of love is perfect.
Right.
So anything else,
PK,
that you can share with Hugh?
I was
anything else about his numbers?
Well, that's what I was taking a look at, some of the things that we were talking about for him. I wanted to know where he was located at this point in time.
Well, that all ties into my truth. That's an interesting question, because I never even, if somebody said what I'd be doing a few years ago, I'd think they were absolutely just getting him out of the insane asylum. But I am self-proclaimed to you the heartbeat of America, currently residing in Ashland, Virginia, which is about 20 miles north of the capital, Richmond. Ashland bills itself the center of the universe. Ashland sits in Hanover County, where Patrick Henry grew up, who said, "Give me liberty or give me death," as a Vietnam-era veteran. I feel the same way all these years later. So I'm looking to get the country back on track, not to be the greatest thing in the world, but to show how we can unite despite our differences and bring forth new paradigms based on spirituality and unconditional agape love that will mirror out freedom, liberty, and justice to the whole world, so people don't keep having to come here for their salvation. They can see how we can peacefully come together and do that in their own countries.
I think it's important that we accept others' differences as they are, but not make it a difference where we are anti each other. We've got to stop that.
Give the respect, exactly. Just coming into the communities with respect and listening to each other, and then forming solutions that will benefit everyone in the community, and then even bringing that out further. I have ways that haven't even been thought about yet of, like, franchising information globally. And then, two, how about a worldwide business Olympics? Right now, they can't even have the Olympic Games, all these athletes and stuff. But how about people that are handicapped, that every country in the world can bring forth their best company transparently, what I like to call a BLT, blogs, links, and transformations, to show how that company in the country is being good to their employees, their customers, the environment, and giving back to the community in ethical, legal, moral ways. That's where we really have to shift.
You're saying we have
to be a big one,
a
big shift.
Cut back on the greed and let's start looking at the need. Make it even better.
I just want to touch on it since he hasn't called in yet, too, and it ties in with what you just said. I recently saw a PBS special called Frontline. They did a whole 2-hour special on Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world. He's worth $130 billion, and I was looking for his end game, but these billionaires, they get in that old boys club, and it's just total greed. I guess they feel the one that has the most, but they don't. But I saw recently in the news where Jeff Bezos was asking for people to donate to a fund that he was creating for employees that might come down with a COVID-19 virus. Now, that's insane. The guy's $130 billion. That's pocket change for him. And even in watching the Frontline presentation, it was very interesting to me because all these order pickers, they have time and motion people studying them, and they automate as quick as they can. And when they employee can't outdo the automation, they're gone. And already, I don't know if you're aware, Walmart has a fully automated store, no cashiers. So
not all of them.
But they're just bringing that online now, and that can carry over into everything. Like fast food and everything is getting more and more automated, and with artificial intelligence and robotics. So this is where people really have to look at tapping into that spirituality and creativity, and making sure they're not prostituting themselves to a company just for a few bucks.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
The hard part is...
Let me just change the subject. I'm going to thank you, Hugh, for your comments, but I wanted to get back to the missing 411 cases, and so I'm going to put you back on your other line here. And thank you again for your question, and PK, thank you for the numerology that you did for Hugh.
And
anybody else who
Hugh.
wants their name done, please call in at 563-999-3539 while we're waiting for our guests. And I wanted to mention also, let's go back to these missing people, because we did have the detectives from the Smiley Face Killers on the show. That was a fascinating show with the two gentlemen that were on, and they
extremely
talked
knowledgeable about everything.
Yeah, well, they were very knowledgeable about the fact that these cases weren't being dealt with properly. But the other side of this are the people that go missing in the national parks. That's a whole different thing. So with the national parks, if anybody has gone to the Facebook page this week, they've seen this. I posted a very interesting map. The map is of where all the missing people have gone missing in the United States, and where the cave systems are underneath the United States. And guess what? They match. So we have to ask the question, what's living underneath in that cave system that may be traveling through the cave system and kidnapping people, men, women, children, and taking them away. And that may be one of the reasons why we can't find them, because David Paulides has done brilliant detective work here. He has presented just the facts of these cases. He does not make any suggestions about what may be happening. He just presents the facts like any good detective would do. And we're all left kind of scratching our heads like, what the hell happened to these people? But that map is very telling. It's a big piece of evidence.
That map absolutely blew my mind. I could not believe it, Patricia, when you put that on, one over the other. And you'll have to put that back up again for those that have missed it.
Yes, because it is a very powerful piece of evidence about that cave system, and who knows what's living down there. Now, some people have reported seeing what they call is a Bigfoot-type creature, whether it's Bigfoot or not, I don't know. I know Dr. J, who's been on the show, he would say it's not Bigfoot that's taking people, but other people would disagree with him. So they've seen some type of a hairy creature on two legs. They've seen in one point, in one case, David Paulides talks about this, there was something slung over the shoulder of one of these creatures after this little boy went missing. Could it have been the little boy? We don't know. But these are some of the things that we need to really continue to investigate. And there's been talk, as you and I have discussed, of wild men, people living in certain areas, remote areas in these parks. And we did hear a story that one of the park rangers was attacked by a wild man, almost killed. And it was after that they cordoned off that area and try to keep hikers out of it. Obviously, it's very dangerous. So there's just so many things going on in the park between these wild men or Bigfoot or something else. And then there are people who just completely disappear, but UFOs were spotted in the sky before they disappeared. But they never surface. Some of them just never, ever surface again. You never see a hide nor hair of them. You don't see their equipment, their shoes, anything, their guns, their bows, if they're hunters. You don't even find that. They're just gone. So who's taking them and why? This is, I think, a fascinating mystery and group of mysteries, and I just so admire David Paulides' work. And if you haven't read his books, I highly recommend you read them because they're full of really good information. It'll get you thinking. The books also, everybody, they're not available on Amazon. They're only available through David's website, which I believe is Can-Am Project or canam.com. You can find it on the Internet and buy the books directly from David. He also has 2 movies out, and they're also very much worth watching. I just saw The Hunted not too long ago. It was excellent. Have you seen that one, PK, The Hunted?
No, I haven't. I have been looking to check that one out. There's another one that he's had out that I wanted to look at as well. I get sidetracked so easy. My brain it's in warp speed or warped. I'm not sure which.
Well, put that on your list, The Hunted. It's an excellent movie, and it really is. It makes you think about what in the world's going on in these parks and why these people are disappearing without a trace. Because they will bring tracking dogs in, and these dogs love to track. They live to track. That's what they want to do. And yet they can't pick up a scent of these missing people, or they'll go to a spot and lie down, or they'll walk in circles. This is not typical behavior of a tracking dog.
No,
so
and I think the fact. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the part that is very nerve-wracking for those that are out trying to find them is that there aren't enough pieces to the puzzle to get them on a direct route. They're having to put every piece together and try to totally redo constantly, because it's one little piece here is found, changes the whole complexion of what's taking place.
Well, and there's so many different things going on. It's not just one thing that's taking these people. It's a group of things that are happening. And then there's the smiley face situation, which you and I discussed. We don't think the smiley faces are, in fact, related actually to what's going on. But that's a whole other thing. And I know the detective told us off the air that they did have some witnesses to one of the possible abductions that was thwarted. And these people, he said, had military training. So what's going on there? You know, is this our military? Is this a dark ops operation? Does this stem from Project Paperclip? What is that these people had military training and they're abducting these young men? They keep them somewhere for a period of time. You know, it can be a week, it can be 72 days. One of them was missing for, and then the bodies are placed in water, but they don't drown. That's not what kills them.
Oh,
so oftentimes they can't even find a cause of death.
No, there's no marks on them. That's
for the most part. Yeah, I think that in a couple of cases there were ligature marks, but it's not what killed them. So
that's
again,
nothing goes up like they've shot, hung, or whatever. There's nothing.
Too many questions, and of course the families have no closure. They don't know what happened, and it's so devastating. But you know, we have heard of cases also where there have been large amounts of GHB in the system, which is known as a date rape drug. But that also dissipates pretty quickly. But that's found in the body. So who's giving it to them before they place them in the water? That's the other question.
Yeah,
and
because
why?
there's enough time.
What are they doing? Because if they were beating them up or torturing them, they'd have marks, but they don't.
Right. And the fact that they're giving the drugs at the period of time between the time that they're missing until they're found, the drugs would have dissipated if it had been given to them at the beginning.
Right. Because that's the kind of drug that apparently can paralyze you. So you have some idea what's going on, but you can't do anything about it. Must be a terrible sinking feeling. That's for sure.
That would have to be a god-awful feeling.
Yes.
One I don't ever want to experience.
No, definitely not. and they tend to take German, people of German heritage. Why German heritage? There were also 5 physicists that went missing in the national parks over a period of time, and they all were German. So why? Why are they taking Germans? That's why, in my mind, I make a link between that and Project Paperclip, where we brought over so many Nazi scientists. And
that's
that never stopped. That those projects they were working on in Germany, they just never stopped them. They just continued them here in the U.S. So is that what's connected to this? Is that the link and why they are looking for German people to take? It's
well, they
really,
always consider themselves superior.
Yeah.
That had a lot to do with it.
I think it's a lot more terrifying than people realize, because these college-age men that have been taken, they were all very, very brilliant, very, very good scholars in what they were doing in their schools.
All very intelligent young men.
And athletic, all very athletic. Some of them were on different teams for their schools. And so they were basically cream of the crop young men that were being taken. And, again, we don't know why. We don't know what's done to them while they're missing for all that time, which I can imagine for the parents must be an incredible nightmare without end. And our hearts go out to them, certainly. But it's time to really focus on solving it. And as you know, Kevin, the detective that led this whole charge about these killings, is still looking into it. But it's just, there's so many dead ends, and then there's things that he said he was led to, but it didn't pan out. It's, again, too many twists and turns along the way with these missing kids.
Oh, it's got to be so frustrating for them to be working on something and think they've gotten to the apex here, and the next thing you know, right back to square one again.
Well, yes, exactly. Now, I do recall they did share with us an interesting story about the girlfriend of one of these men, these young college men, got a phone call from her boyfriend, and he said to pick him up. So she waited for him outside the hotel where he was drinking with his friends. But what happened was he came out of the hotel. She was parked on the street. There was a black SUV parked on the wrong side of the street where she was. So she was watching that. So her boyfriend comes out, and he starts walking towards the black SUV and right past her. And so she's screaming his name to come back to her car. And he was totally disoriented. Remember that story? It was really, really awful, but had kind of a happy ending for a little while. So what happened was he walked back to her car, and he said he didn't feel well. He didn't know where he had been. He was, again, very disoriented. She took him home. Then she said later she wished she had taken him to the hospital, but she took him home. And then it was a short while later, he was out again with his friends. That time they got him. He was kidnapped, gone.
Oh, it sounded like they were waiting for him.
They absolutely were. And apparently, you have to wonder, it's like, was there mind control involved? What was going on? What made him want to walk to that black SUV? Something
what made them
calling
want
him to that.
What made them want him? This is the second time around. Why did they? What was it that he knew or could do that made him a key part of their program?
That's what everybody wants to know. And they're all young, athletic, good shape, good physical shape, very intelligent, doing well in school. All of them had those characteristics. So, why are they taking them and then killing them? And we don't even know how they're killing them.
No, it doesn't even make good sense. But, of course, there's a lot of things out there that's for sure.
No. Now,
amazing.
Let's go back to the national parks. So some of the things that go on there are extremely bizarre in the way that they, especially with missing kids, because often with missing kids they will find remains. Not anywhere near where the child went missing. So something had to take that child miles away from where that child was originally. But they've been talking about what they found, like a skull cap with deep scratches in it. What could do that? And just things like that, like certain little bones that they find, but not the rest of the bones.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a predator. They said that they've talked to mountain lion experts, bear experts, and it's definitely not that. So, it makes you think about, with the scratches on the skull cap, those pterodactyl type creatures that have been spotted that aren't supposed to exist. And you wonder, those things had huge wingspans, could easily pick up a child and carry it away. So is something like that doing it? Or are we back to the Bigfoot type creature? So when we talked to Dr. J, I don't know if you remember this one, but he said it's definitely not Bigfoot. They wouldn't do that.
No, I don't think it's Bigfoot either.
Yeah,
not
I think it's possible.
You know what I mean?
There's, as he said, there's also another group of Bigfoot-type creatures that were left here by aliens thousands of years ago, and they are violent and vicious, and they're capable of this. So he is attributing that to those creatures, and he did give them a name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But he's a big proponent of, Bigfoot is kind and gentle and nice. So that's his opinion, and also based on his own experience and continued research with Bigfoot people. But, there's good and bad in everything. Who knows? There could be a tribe out there that's, cannibalistic towards humans and wants to pick up little children. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah.
These creatures are very elusive. They come and go through portals. They have easy access in and out. And, again, the cave system. Now, years ago, we also had Dahani Uwahu on the show. And she told us that the Bigfoot traveled through a cave system under the United States. And she told us that 4 years ago.
We were talking about the cave system as the map shows that there's so much going on underneath. I'm surprised that we haven't got more information about what's under the ground at that point in time, or any point in time.
Well, I think we have some information about those caves, but I don't want to go traveling looking for anything. At the same time, again, it just really struck me that in an interview with Dahani, she did say that. She said that's how they travel, is through the cave system underneath the United States. So Dahani talked about going out to meet with the Bigfoot once a year. And when she would go to meet them, she had many students throughout the world, and she'd bring a few students with her who really wanted to meet them. And she said they would have this gathering at a certain spot in the middle of the country, and she would go. So these three people would go with her, and she said, I got tired of taking them because every time we go, the Bigfoot would start coming towards us, and those large shapes would trigger something in their unconscious, and they'd just pass out. So,
for heaven's sake.
Yeah, and, I can see that happening because anything like that, can you imagine? You're faced with a 7-foot-tall creature or more who is, coming towards you. I would imagine in our conscious or unconscious minds, we would feel some deep threat. But she said, I got tired of it. They'd pass out, and then I have to take care of them, and I didn't want to bring them anymore. so she stopped bringing them with her.
That would be, don't fail me now.
Yeah, so
Lord.
Dahani was very knowledgeable about them and had many experiences with them that she shared with us. I should bring her back on the show because, again, she has had experiences with Bigfoot as well as extraterrestrials. So she has a lot of knowledge about both groups. And, again, we've heard from people that have dealt with fairies, good and bad with the fairies, good and bad with everything. Right. So we can't just say, as Dr. J wants us to think about this, that all Bigfoot are good. That's the way he thinks about it based on his experience. That I have no idea. I've had no personal experience with Bigfoot.
I was going to say, I really wouldn't argue that one. But there again, it'd be a question of feet don't fail me now because I'm not going to stand around and wait to Bigfoot to see whether it works or not.
Hopefully you wouldn't pass out like Dahani's students did. So
no, it's
just
just
be
like
lying
a
there.
Probably freeze face.
So yeah, there's just again too many questions, not enough answers with all of these things.
True.
And as David Paulides has wisely said, don't go hiking alone. Number one, tell people where you're going, when you expect to come out, and make sure you give that information to somebody you trust, so that if you don't show up, they will call in search and rescue. Yep. You don't want to give that information to some loser who forgets that you're out there somewhere lost or kidnapped or whatever. You want to give it to
a friend that forgot I was there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to give it to somebody who's responsible and is watching the time and knows if you're not back by a certain time to do something about it. You also want to take a personal locator with you and a firearm if you are trained in firearms. That's always a wise thing to do. And as David has shared over and over again, nobody has ever gone missing that's had a firearm and a locator. So those are some thoughts
and
from David
don't
Paulides,
always
and
work
I think
when
they're
you're
good.
out like that, unfortunately. We think that they'll work anywhere, but they don't always. There may be something that's blocking it from the terrain.
Well, cell phones don't have service in a lot of places in the national parks, and even a lot of places in cities, they don't have service. But certainly, if you're going out into the wilderness, you need something other than a cell phone. So,
definitely.
And also, people have talked about their cell phone batteries when they encounter something supernatural get drained. So that's of no value when you're out there and you're encountering some strange event and your cell phone battery goes down. You need something else. And you need all of the backup that you can give yourself, because there's a lot going on in those woods and those mountains. And the Native Americans knew to stay away from certain places. And I believe that's why they named them with the devil in the name, to stay away from Devil's Nest and stay away from Devil's this or that. That's why they named it that way, because they knew that something else was going on there and people would go missing. So it's, they knew what they were talking about, and they were much more open-minded to possibilities. So, again, be careful if you're going to be hiking, and follow those precautions. Pick up David's books so you can read more about all of this. And he also has some great podcasts that he's doing on YouTube where he's reading people's stories. People have written into him about their own personal experiences beyond the stuff that he has in the books. And they're very interesting stories that he's been sharing with people in his podcast. So I highly recommend that. You can pick that up off of YouTube and watch those and subscribe to it. Again, very informative, very unusual stories that I've never heard before. So it's a really good source of supernatural events that you don't necessarily hear about in the mainstream paranormal world. This is stuff that, again, parents encounter with their children, and they just don't know what to make of it. So they're finally finding a place to share it with David, which is tremendous. So, again, his work is really something spectacular, and he's faced a lot of hurdles, too, because the national parks do not want to cooperate with him. They refuse to give him or anybody a list of all the missing people, which is kind of unbelievable that there's thousands of people that go missing and no list.
That they won't allow us to know the who and how come.
Well, they have lists of how much toilet paper they have, but they don't have a list of their missing people.
Amazing.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. We don't pay attention to certain things, and other things we spend too much time paying attention to.
Well, again, they are covering it up. Why are they covering it up? It's not that they're not paying attention, PK. It's that they don't want to share the information publicly. And the reason they don't want to share the information is because those parks make money. So, if enough people get scared of going to the parks because of whatever's going on in the parks, then they lose money. So all of that comes from the top down, where they're looking at the bottom line. I mean, you talked with Hugh about greed, and here's another example of it. So people's safety comes way far down the line. And meanwhile, David tries to get these cases. They refuse to give him the files on the cases, and they refuse to provide a list. And that should be, I think that should be brought up to our congressmen and other people that can change the law on that and force them to give that information.
I'm a little leery about them getting them to change things. They don't seem to be doing a good job of that at the present time anyway.
Well, they're not, but this is something that should be changed because we should know if there's, 1,000 people missing in the last 5 years at Yosemite. I think we should know that information and who's on the list. So
that's for sure.
It's true. Some people go hiking, they're unprepared, they injure themselves, they die of exposure or whatever from their injuries. But then there's these more mysterious cases. And, again, what do we have to even combat that? We don't have anything. We don't have enough to really give ourselves a high level of safety. And even, here's the other thing, and this is why I recommend that movie, The Hunted, that David produced, because now what he did was he went into, here are experienced woods people. They go in to the woods. Many of them have been hunting all their lives. They know where they're going. This is not unfamiliar territory to them, and they disappear. So if they disappear, what does that mean for you and me, two nitwits going into the woods unprepared? It's like we didn't grow up in the woods. We didn't grow up with that lifestyle.
Yeah.
But these men and women did, and they're gone.
Putting yourself in jeopardy. And you put everybody else in jeopardy that's going to come looking for you if you're out there as a total novice.
Right. But to say that even the hunters have gone missing and with no trace of them. I mean, there was a story about an older gentleman. He had only one eye, so, he wanted to go and with his family hunting, and they sat him down in a chair, and they didn't go far away, and they were going to, I guess, handle, I don't know what they were doing is, I guess, driving the deer in a certain direction, but they went back to get him, and he was gone. And now everybody knew he was an older man. He had some, problems with his joints and his leg. He wasn't going to travel very far on his own, and yet he was missing. Totally missing, gone, never found him.
Incredible that anybody can disappear like that, but we're reading more and more about it.
And again, these are all experienced hunters, so they know what they're doing in the woods, and yet here this kind of thing happens. It's very startling, and it deserves a complete investigation. But yet, it kind of reminds me of Bob Monroe when I worked for him, and he's always used to say about the paranormal, we just don't have the science to deal with the paranormal. He said, all we are doing is measuring the exhaust from the car. We have no idea how the engine works with this stuff.
That is what a very prophetic statement.
It's very profound. Bob was a genius in everything he did, but at the same time, he was also wise enough to know how limited we are as a culture, that we are unable to get to the science of any of this. So we end up dismissing it because we don't have the science for it. Now, there was a story about a hunter that David reported, and this is a woman hunter whose husband was a scientist, and I forget the exact name, but he was a scientist in opticals, so he could, examine photographs and type they were photoshopped and how they were made. I mean, he is still alive, and he's an incredible genius at what he does in photoanalysis, and there's a special name for it that escapes me. But anyways, that was his wife, the hunter, that went out hunting one evening. She was sitting up in her tree stand, and she said, all of a sudden, everything got quiet. Now, that's a big sign something's about to happen that is not natural to us. So she looked to the other tree, and she saw something moving, kind of like in the Predator movie, where the thing goes invisible, but you get some kind of wave experience, like saran wrap is there, and it's kind of rustling in the wind. Anyways, she had her cell phone. She didn't even know she had taken a picture, but she was scared to death. Now, here's an experienced hunter hunting on her own property, terrified. She didn't know what she was looking at. She didn't know what that was, but she knew she was scared of it.
Yeah,
so,
that's scary.
When she could collect herself, she climbed down from the tree stand, went home. And they had dinner guests, so she didn't even tell her husband about it until after they left. And so he said to her, of course, being involved in photography, did you take a picture? And she said, I don't know if I did or I didn't. I was so terrified. She hands him her cell phone, and he finds a picture.
Oh, and really?
Yes. He finds a picture, and they look at it, and it looks like, again, out of a Predator movie. There's something there, and it looks like there's saran wrap over it and long hair. So, like the hair of a Bigfoot. That's what it looks like to me. So anyways, he analyzes the picture, and he calls the, I don't know if it was Verizon or who she got the phone from, but he calls the phone manufacturer, and he gives them the pixels on the photo. And they said to him, there is no way that camera could have taken that photo. It's not equipped to take a photo like that. So there's no explanation as to how this happened. But, again, here we are. We're in the world of the supernatural. There's no science to show us how this kind of thing happened. Now, strangely enough, they had a nephew who was a few miles away at band practice outside. While they were at band practice, they look up in the sky at the same time that she was in the woods, scared to death. Everything went quiet where she was. They look up in the sky, and they see UFOs in the sky. So the nephew calls and says, hey, this is what happened. We were out, doing our band practice, and there were UFOs overhead. And it was this particular time, I don't know, it was 6:30 or whatever, same time that she was out on her deer stand. So a couple of things that are supportive that there was something very unusual going on that night. And again, an experienced hunter, just scared to death, not knowing what she was looking at, but knowing that whatever it was, she was terrified of it.
Isn't that incredible that things like that can take place? Amazing.
Yes. And strangely enough, thank goodness her husband was an expert and is an expert at this type of analysis. So, again, we are far behind in understanding the supernatural and the paranormal from a scientific perspective. And that's to our detriment, especially in situations like this. So, when people take the supernatural and put it down, dismiss it, make fun of it, whatever, they're really doing something quite stupid because it's all around us. Things are happening like this all around us. It's time we paid attention and really got down to brass tacks as to what it is and finding a way to have science support the whole event and see what really is happening. How did the camera take that photograph? It's not set up to do a photograph like that. It's supposed to be impossible, but it happened. So we need to understand how it happened.
Now, where do we turn that information? That's the key.
Well, it's turning to people who are smart enough who have the science to try to tweak it in a certain way so that we can use it. We can use it to figure all these things out. I mean, certainly this is just an example of one thing that's going on. But we've certainly seen through the years so much with ghosts, so much with other types of cryptids. We got to have Ken Gerhardt back on the show because he has a new book out about creatures. And, all of these things, people have spotted them. Mothman. Mothman's one of my favorite creatures. I love Mothman.
You're fascinated by him.
I do. I would love to meet Mothman. I think Mothman is incredibly cool. So, but there's been so many people who spotted Mothman, so many people that had encounters with Mothman, and yet there are people who will dismiss it and just go, no, this stuff doesn't exist. They couldn't be more wrong. Of course it exists. How did these people see this? They weren't having a mass hallucination. It was happening at all different times throughout a period of a month or 2 or 3. So, there's more going on there.
It's amazing how many things are made known to us, and then because we question it, next thing you know, it's gone on to another step, and we've never gotten the answers that we really needed or could use to go forward.
But that's it. So we stay kind of stuck in the mud. But some of these things that are out there are predators. Doesn't it make sense? You'd want to know something about them? I would.
Well, I think I would like to also, I just wouldn't want to consider them all a bad date,
It could be a really bad date.
I tell you. Whew, I'd get your attention.
A horrible date. A date you'd never forget.
Oh, gosh, for sure. Goodness gracious. Patricia, we're talking about this. What about when you take a look at things for the future and you're taking a look at how to represent some of these situations that are out there? We want to do it where we give people information, but we don't want them to get frightened by some of the things that come up. And some people get a little nervous and jerky by what we talk about, but if they would just take a look at it, how many doors are opened up and how much information is passed on by our sharing?
Well, I agree. I think that knowledge is power, and also we have freedom of choice. There's certain things that we still can change, and what gives us that ability is to have an open mind and to take in all the information so we have good discernment and can make a better choice. So when that happens, we can feel at least grounded in our decisions moving forward. I think a lot of people you're right, they don't want to know. And I find that very troubling. It's like, well, if you don't want to know, then you're kind of at the effect of all of these things swirling around you rather than taking charge. I mean, don't you feel as a numerologist that you're giving people power over their own lives?
Heavens. By looking at your birthday or looking at your birth name, all these things can give you information that opens doors for you that you didn't even think possible, or when to avoid the worst of things, shall we say, or minimize issues to a point that they're all workable. Because given our personal birthday itself, set with the universe, gives us information every day, every month, every year, that we could not only look at what's happening now, but we can take a look at what's happening in the future, because everything we do wraps around the name at birth and the date of birth, because every letter of our name lasts for a period of time, and during that period of time, it will show you what you can work with, what's advantageous for you, or when to pull back and not try to push. There's nothing possible if you're pushing at a pull time or just the other way around. Take advantage of the knowledge that you have, and look what you do with the things that you do for others, Patricia. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting with, the power of prophetic dreaming, of the power to ask a question before you go to sleep at night and wake up with an answer. To me, that's total empowerment. I mean, how easy is that? You get the answer in your sleep? I mean, that's fabulous. It's easy. But a lot of people look at that and they think it's too much work. So, no, I don't want to, I just want to go to sleep. It's like, well, you will anyways, but why not wake up with something
eventually.
useful? Yeah.
It's better to wake up with an answer.
Just wake up with an answer. Why not? And I've worked with so many people through the years that started out, they couldn't even remember their dreams at first. And then over in a month or so, they would become very proficient at dreaming and remembering their dreams. And by the time I was done working with them, they were all having prophetic dreams. I mean, it's kind of a natural flow if you pay attention to your dreams, that you will eventually walk into that space where you are having a prophetic dream. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. As much as some of the dreams can be a bit scary, I know a lot of people dreamt about 9/11 before it happened. A lot of people dreamt about that tidal wave that took place before it happened. So, and we know Betsy Foss and Lewis, and she also has a lot of information about the future come to her in her dreams. So I'd rather know than not know, and I think your work and my work, and it does help people to gather as much information as possible and walk out into the world fully forewarned. Forewarned is forearmed. why not have that information? Why not invest a little bit into your own self, your own consciousness, so that you can get a real look at what's happening, and also not be misled. Not be misled by mainstream media. One of my girlfriends called me today before the show, and she said, I just don't know who to believe about the virus. Is it dangerous? Is it not? Did you do this? Did you do that? So people are just running around like chickens without heads about this because they're getting so much mixed information, and they don't know how to evaluate it. So it is important to be knowledgeable with who you are, what your path is, and what your choices are going to be about it. I think, again, what you offer, what I offer, it's very helpful, very valuable to people to keep them safe and to have a fulfilling life, especially in times like this.
Oh, for sure.
I never thought we'd see this. It's like a movie come to life. Never thought we'd see this day. Yeah.
No, this is totally unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. I have to have a chat with God again. We've got to make some changes here. We have to get smarter and work harder at opening doors because He gives us all the tools. All we have to do is learn to use them.
Well, I know what you mean. We do need a definite chat about this. I will share with you another piece of information that came to me about the virus, and this is from a friend of mine in Texas who knows people at the CDC. And he shared with me that he has a friend that works at the CDC who doesn't get scared of anything. But he said to my friend, I'm scared for the first time ever. I'm really scared because the CDC has identified 3 vectors of this virus. 2 that will make you really sick, no question. But 1 is a bioweapon that is designed to kill you. So I think that's part of the reason, I would guess, based on this information, if this is real, that is one of the reasons why they're being so cautious, because they don't know a lot about this 3rd vector yet, but they accept that it is meant to be deadly. And I think, according to what this gentleman told me, this is why we're seeing people who are young and healthy being struck down in a matter of days, because that's the vector they were exposed to. So if that's true, you can really understand the caution that is being expressed about reopening our businesses and everything else. And I understand people don't want to be locked in their houses. I get it, but at the same time,
but you're alive. Doesn't that worth something?
Right. And the thing is, then put things in place, whatever it is, whether it's masks or gloves or both or certain, distancing procedures or whatever. There needs to be a protocol that we can at least all use together, rather than some people wearing masks, which I've seen, and then there are some not. So there needs to be some uniformity, I think, with all of it.
Now, I think some people get very scared that they're almost like a deer in headlights. Then there's the hard charger. Nobody's going to tell them what to do. And then there's a guy in the middle that's trying to make peace with what's taking place so that we could all be safe and sound. It's like watching this ball bounce. You don't know which direction to go because some people are, like I said, like the deer in headlights. They don't know which thing to do first.
Well, they don't. And this is why you need to know who you are as a person. You need to know as much about yourself as possible so you know what to do.
That
a lot
would
of
be
this
perfect.
does come from within, and too many of us are focused outward rather than inward. And so, part of the time of being in your own home and not running around in the world doing your shopping and all these other things is that you get to take some of that time, hopefully, for reflection, meditation, and going within rather than crabbing about it. So I don't know how many people are crabbing and how many people are benefiting. What do you think?
Oh, I'd go more for crabbing than I would for the other side.
Well, what's happening in Tucson?
Pardon me?
What's happening in Tucson? What are you seeing there?
Well, actually, it's pretty calm, which is nice. I don't see anybody panicking and getting uptight about it. In fact, for the most part, people are resigned to the fact that they need to stay away, they need to wear masks. But now that we're getting close to the 1st of May, I see that they're slacking off. I've noticed more people in the store not having a mask on, where before you saw more of it. If people just stop to think, that mask may save their lives as well as somebody else's. They think they're doing it on behalf of others, but they're doing it for themselves as well.
Well, it has to, I would think so. Absolutely. And plus, there's so many people that may be carriers of this that don't know it. And
that's the point. And they sneeze, at least it stays with them. They're already accustomed to it, instead of going off to somebody else that happens to be walking by. I was at a store one day, and this couple and their youngster, who was probably about 8 or 9, the little girl is coughing and sneezing. The father's got a runny nose, and he's using his sleeve to wipe it. And the mother is hacking like she's, I thought, oh, dear God in heaven. And they're going from aisle to aisle. And as they sneeze, they don't realize it isn't just where they are. It spreads. And
it
so
spreads
the
a lot.
cashier looked, she said, oh, my God. And I said, they've just been going through there. And she said, I'm wiping down my whole area here because they had been in her area dropping their stuff off. And I don't blame her for cleaning. She held everything up while she cleaned her area. Yet we have to take precautions. I know it's time-consuming, but it's a life-saving attempt that we're making.
Yes.
We just don't know what the end result is right now. And until we really do, we do have to pay attention to how we handle things. Washing our hands, that's extremely important, but I think covering our noses and mouths is equally as important because the hands save us. The mask and such saves others. I think that's really, people that don't do anything to protect others, that's very selfish. That's very selfish.
Yes.
Just my thought.
Yeah, I think it is. And again, it's this is a worldwide pandemic. It is not just, neighborhood. This is a big deal, as Randy did explain to us before all this started. So it is something to keep in mind that we have to find a way that's going to work, that we can hopefully keep the economy moving forward and go back to work without threatening our lives and the lives of our friends and family. All of that has to be in balance, and that's quite a balance to try to find at this point.
Well, and I think one of the things that's so very, very important, we don't need to hoard anything. If we buy what we really need, there'll be enough for everyone. The fact that we've been out of toilet paper or Lysol, those are the things that are necessities at this day and age, that they're unavailable because somebody's sitting there with a garage full or someone else. Why? Take what you need. You don't need more. And somebody else could certainly use it and make their life a lot easier.
Well, yeah, I do think but it is also at the same time something you need to plan for. The supply chain is breaking down. I've been talking to people in this area. And the problem is it's hitting on every level. So, for example, there are a lot of farmers in this area, which is great, right? They humanely raise animals, beef, cows for beef, and they raise pigs and all kinds of other animals, chickens. But what happened is the slaughterhouses got totally backed up. So now the farmers are having animals that they can't bring to the slaughterhouse, which means that's not going to make its way onto anybody's table. So that's a big problem right there, let alone everything else that's going on with the supply chain. So we do need to know to plan ahead, because there may come a time when you go to the store and there is no meat and there is no chicken. I've already been to the store like 4 weeks ago. There was no chicken. It was gone.
They're already making changes. But if we are proactive instead of having to be reactive to everything, and we're taking a look at some of the things that people are doing that are unnecessary, if we're just taking care of what we need. I feel sorry for the farmer that's had to turn his milk the faucets on and let the milk go to waste because they're unable. it just breaks your heart because there's so many people that desperately need the food and need the milk.
And we can't get it to
I don't know what the solution is, but it's scary because people aren't thinking in balance. They're thinking out of control. I'm not saying everybody, but enough of them do it that throw everything out of balance.
Well, and I have to say it's a bit confronting to go to the Costco website and see that you can't buy paper towel because they're out of stock, and you can't buy toilet paper because they're out of stock. And you go down the list, you can't buy Ziploc bags because they're out of stock. There is something that kind of strikes terror into your heart when you go to hit the buy button and you cannot buy it. That is not something we're used to in this country.
No, we've been very fortunate and also very spoiled. And so consequently, we don't pay attention to the needs overall. We just take a look at what we think we need. We're going to have to think more global.
Well, and again, planning. I mean, preppers, remember the whole deal with preppers years ago, and everybody was making fun of them. You know, that they were crazy, that they had, you know, all these canned food items and dry food items, and they were like, look, we know it's going to be necessary at some point, and we're getting ready now. Well, you can't make fun of them now. They were right. So they're ready. They've got everything they need. They've been planning for this for years. And I remember watching the prepper shows, and they were fascinating. But these people were serious about getting prepared if, you know, our culture, our society, our lifestyle could not be supported. They're ready. And they weren't hoarding. They were, you know, doing their own canning. They were doing all of their own work to make sure that they had what they needed. It was smart. It was just smart thinking.
Well, there was a point in time when we did so much of our own canning and growing, etc. It doesn't happen anymore. Okay, when somebody cans something to me, it's like, wow, look at this. My mother used to can when I was a kid. She'd always take peaches from the trees and figs. And it was always, you could never touch it if you tasted as good as they did. And even though, as you're growing up, whoa, I had canned this, something out of a can versus canned. It made you feel like you were getting something special until you got older and realized how special what they canned really was.
Yes, it was a big difference, what my grandmother used to do. And, of course, it's time-consuming. Of course, it takes that old-fashioned knowledge, which hopefully isn't completely lost. But it's an important thing to know how to do, to be self-sustaining. And, again, what we're looking at now here in the area that I live in is gathering together so we can do bulk buying from local farms to decide if there's going to be a farm in the area that's going to do vegetables, fruits, whatever. What will we do? How will we contract something with them so that we can have a steady supply of what we need? Of course, the winter, that's a whole other thing. So
that's why canning is important.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where that becomes a very important skill to have. And, again, all of this is making us look a little more locally than globally so that we can sustain ourselves that way. And probably the same is true for you there, that people are noticing. You know, they go to the stores and some of the shelves are bare. You know, it's like, no, the tomato sauce is gone and all these other items are not there anymore.
Nope, nothing is the same. It's time that we have to reinvent how we do things to make them better, not worse.
Yes, but then what's the plan for that? And I think some of it has to be being able to sustain your area, yourself, your family locally. Because as the supply chain breaks down, then shipping becomes a problem. Then receiving goods becomes a problem. So is there something that we can all do locally so that we are less dependent on all of those external factors and we can feed ourselves and do the things that we need to do to keep this going? I think there's a lot of places that haven't embraced that concept yet.
No, I agree with you. And you take a look at these truckers that are having to travel the roads and under the circumstances of what they're going through to try to make sure that things get through. And because of this, they have rest stops that are closed There are restaurants that are closed on the road, so they have no place to go to utilize just healthy facilities, shall we say, or a bite to eat. There's nothing, and they're still doing it. And you can't thank them enough for what they're doing on behalf of everybody else.
Well, you can't. I know a FedEx driver showed up here probably 3 days ago, and he's somebody that I've seen often, and we're always talking about stuff together when he shows up. And this time he came at about 6 o'clock on a Saturday to deliver a package, and he looked terrible. He was so exhausted. I know they're pushing the drivers really hard to get these packages delivered. Of course, these delivery places are way behind. I mean, they've taken on a lot of customers suddenly. They can't handle it, and it's just created a backlog in every way. I felt really bad for him because of the pressure that's on him to make sure all these packages get delivered. So, yeah, a lot has to happen more locally, I think, so that we can be truly sustainable. And it's going to be a challenge where you are. You have water issues in Tucson.
Oh, yes, we do. And we do have some things that are going to be taking place when you stop and think about the farmers markets and such as this that we've got up and about. But if things continue like this, how are they going to get them to market or getting things taken care of? People have to remember to be kind to one another, because we may have to go back to the system where this person is the seamstress, this person is the baker, and share what each other has, as opposed to, I'll get it all because I deserve it. That doesn't work that way anymore.
Yeah, and I know up here, we live out, as everybody knows, in the middle of nowhere, and we've had discussions about what happens if the cities collapse and people start coming out from the cities. We don't want them. So it's the kind of thing where rural living affords you a certain mindset and boundary that, look, don't come out here, because you chose to live in the city. You chose not to prepare for something like this, and this is not a good opportunity to come out here and think that you'll take the things that we've worked hard for our local community. So, yeah, everybody's got to start thinking a lot differently, like you said. And it's, it'd be great to think that we could all be kinder to each other, but I'll tell you what, when you're hungry and there's no food in the stores, you're not going to be kind to your neighbor. You're going to want to take their food. It's just survival. That's how it's going to be. So that's the other thing to look at very honestly here. It's a nice way to talk about let's all be good to each other, which is easy to do when everybody's got a full belly. But when there are people that don't have food, that are used to having a lot of food, that all changes. All bets are off.
Well, there's a lot of us that could go on a diet without any problem. But I did notice when things started to turn, I had neighbors that called me and asked, did I need anything? Because I'm on my own. Would I like to have them shop for me or whatever? And I thought that's really, those are what we were raised to remember as neighborhoods. People go into their own worlds these days, and the fact that people will take the time right now to ask if somebody needs something as opposed to just ignoring, I think that's fabulous. Maybe we're getting back that human touch again. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well, not touching, that's not allowed, but what we're getting back to, I think, as long as things are available to us, as long as food, water, medical care is available to us, when those things go away, all of that changes. They won't be so nice, I guarantee you. It would be nice to think that that's possible, but I think if there isn't some type of a structural bond in place before that all falls apart, you can't even expect it. So I think we have our work cut out for us here. And unfortunately, our guest didn't make it. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure I'll get quite the story at some point. So I'll be sure to post it.
That nothing happened to him. Probably, I hope he didn't go on one of those trail walks and end up being somewhere else.
I know, and disappear. He could be missing 411 in the next book. Oh, my God, I hope not. Well, look, thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight and bearing with us and listening to us chat away as to what we know and don't know about the paranormal. Anyways, it's always great to be here with you, all of you. And be safe out there. Now, next week, don't forget, great show. We're talking about The House. and we'll have a great lineup for you. And these guests will show up. So until then, we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural Girlz.